I'm Mike DeLuca. Welcome to this rare In the Trenches look at the craft of screenwriting. Today we're sitting here with Ted Griffin, whose very witty, very gritty work has included in the past the screenplays for films like Ocean's 11, Ravenous, Best Laid Plans, and of course Matchstick Men, which he wrote with his brother Nick. Thank you, Ted, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How did you come to start writing with your brother? How did that work out?
We grew up in the same house and knew each other from there, and decided early on that we wanted to work together at some point.
What a fortuitous coincidence.
Yeah, it did. He was there first, and then I came about 4 years later.
And then the screenplay followed.
Yeah.
Does he also have a worthless degree in English?
He has a worthless degree in film from UCLA. So go to film school, everyone.
I feel his pain. I too share a worthless BFA. And NYU.
In film?
In film.
What a waste of time.
Fine arts. Now, is it true that you actually did a variety of odd jobs with that degree in hand?
Oh, yes. I came out here
car?
with a $100,000 education and got a $5.75 an hour job as a dry cleaner across the street from Chasen's when it still existed.
Keeping the parents proud.
Yeah. Did fluff and fold at the dry cleaner. Don't make any fluffing jokes. And Gabriel Byrne was one of the clients of the dry cleaner, and so I used to do his
Tidy whities.
Yeah. And then I sold some scripts a couple years later, and there was a...
Okay, there's a little bit more of a transition between Gabriel Byrne's
right,
underwear and selling some scripts.
Tell the whole story.
Well, a little bit more detail.
All right, but it's just I like to name drop, and so I was cutting over the dull stuff. All right,
nothing happened between Gabriel Byrne and the first screenplay being sold?
All right, I'll go through the whole bio. So I come out, I've written 2 scripts before I come to Los Angeles, although I am from here. Come out of college, I have 2 scripts written, which are both instantly shelved and bad. I write, I think, 3 more before... and get a bunch of rejection letters from all sorts of agents, and then through a friend of a friend and through sleeping around, I get sort of hooked up with an agent who then sells 3 of them in a week.
You had a pretty eclectic start. Is there any one thing that prepared you for life as a screenwriter? The temping, the dry cleaning?
I had a night in prison in high school, which shaped me. I'm trying to think if there's sort of one event. College, not at all.
Right.
I would say I'd rather have taken the Spielberg, Orson Welles route to becoming a filmmaker, which is skipping it. But
do you think film school makes any kind of contribution?
I have no idea. I mean, my brother was undergrad film, and so it didn't really sort of. Right. I don't know how to educate him. It didn't launch him as far as connections are.
Did you always know that the way you'd break into the film business would be through writing and screenwriting?
Yeah, it was sort of the design to write in order to direct, and that's really worked out like a gem so far. No, it's easier when you're trying to break in if you have a ream of blank paper and a computer than trying to corral 30 people and get $50,000 to make a short.
Right.
So I took the lazy way, and here I am.
How many scripts did you write before the first one got produced?
I'd written 5. There were Best Laid Plans and Ravenous, which broke all sorts of box office records in Bavaria. Had both been written and sort of and around for 2 years before they were sold.
Okay.
And then commenced photography within like a week of each other, and they were probably the 4th and 5th scripts I'd written.
Were those first 5 kind of run-ups to?
Ravenous was the 4th script I'd written, and it was the first one that I felt like this actually feels like I'm a real writer now, because I was not paying attention to any of the rules you learn about screenwriting.
Right.
Like I was sort of actually, I don't want to say beyond the structure, but where I threw away
the conventional wisdom.
Convention, and just sort of wrote something that I thought would be really interesting. Right. And then derived a lot of things from other movies and made it less interesting. You
have a degree in English, but you wanted to be a director. Do you tend to think in pictures when you write, or are you more like language-based?
A little bit in pictures. Sometimes I think more in time. I mean, what's the rhythm of a scene or a sequence?
Okay.
And so sometimes when you're writing for a director, you just get a sense. Like if I've written a movie for Ridley Scott, and therefore there are some considerations of like, well, if Ridley's going to direct this, then you can go a little, set the scene in something a little bigger. But mostly when I'm just writing sort of in a vacuum, I don't consider it so much as visually as temporally.
Right. Where do you find inspiration for the things you write?
Books, not scripts, and not watching movies, but probably thinking about movies. I think when you go to sort of watch a movie and think, okay, I want to do something that's like Raiders and you watch it, I think that actually stunts the imagination. But actually, if you just movies are I think if you're a movie lover, you enjoy kind of remembering movies sometimes even more than sort of revisiting them.
How important is research to you? Or do you just kind of wing it, or do you go out and experience it firsthand?
I do some research, usually find it useless and end up lying.
Okay.
I did a lot of research.
I have a sneaking suspicion writers just make it up.
Yeah, and I think you should. As far as like, there are two different things of like researching what security is like at a Vegas casino. I did that. It's all about Uzis and armored trucks, and there's not that much money that's kept there, and therefore was a tough place to have a lighthearted caper without guns going off.
So that was the idea of one vault for 3 casinos, an invention of the
that's an invention that there has to be enough money in the casino for 10 times the amount of chips on the floor is a fabrication.
I bought it all.
Thanks very much. That people in Las Vegas are that pretty. I mean, it's all a lie. But then there's the sort of thing of like if you're writing if your character is the President of the United States and you've never been the President of the United States, there's some...
You're free to speculate.
You're free to speculate, and kind of, you just have to use your imagination. What would we like to be elected in there? And,
right. Are you going to run for office someday?
No, I'm not.
Is there a part of writing a screenplay that's more difficult for you than other parts?
Yeah, coming up with a story. I mean,
I hear it's a key part of the process.
It is a key part of the process. Usually, I mean, they're...
You'd be surprised how many people forget that.
Yeah, I can name some sequels of movies that they forgot that part.
Do you outline in the beginning?
A little bit. I mean, I don't write down and outline that much because I actually either because I'm lazy or because I just want to sort of get to the writing process. But there are first acts of movies that are plentiful, and usually I try to get at least to sort of what the launching point of the third act is going to be before I start anything, because I've started a couple of scripts where I've gotten about half in and thought, I don't know, like...
Oh, so that's it, you get through about half of it and you realize you don't have a way out?
Or like a good idea that doesn't just keep it plateaued.
Okay.
I think the first draft of Ravenous, which I'll just talk in shorthand because I know everyone's familiar with the plot, I'd gotten about halfway through and realized I have my protagonist caught up in the mountains, and there's a villain out there, and I could sustain this for 40 minutes of them just
circling each other,
and then the notion was like end it, get back to let's sort of restart the movie.
How did you approach the writing of it? Do you decide what the plot of the scene is first, or the theme, or what's going on physically, or?
I think you start off instinctively of just sort of. Because I think if you intellectualize it, if you analyze it going in...
you could kill it before it starts.
Yeah, that line about analyzing humor is like dissecting a frog. Right. No one enjoys it and the frog dies. I think if you sort of... if you start off by saying, well, I want to make a movie that's really about man's inhumanity to man, and so on, well, I usually have to start with story, and then I think the most important thing about writing is during that process coming upon the clarity and I don't want to say simplicity, but I'll say simplicity of what the movie is really about. And this doesn't come out very well in the film, I think, but in Ocean's 11, I think I was on page 100 before I realized this is the story about a guy pulling off a ludicrous heist simply to show his wife that he loves, his ex-wife that he loves.
So that was a late in the process?
Yeah, it was sort of like, but I started off like, oh, this is a big heist movie.
Right.
And they'll be, okay, and here's the girl. But then I thought, okay, this is actually what it's about.
When you've got a script that's almost ready to go, do you get opinions from friends or family or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't really have a discipline about it, but I make the mistake sometimes of showing fragments of scripts to people, usually because I just want a pat on the head and like, oh, it's wonderful. Like, you take a painting or a picture to your mom when you're a kid. So you try to not do that. And then there are a couple, I'm friends with Scott Frank and Richard Ravenous, and the last thing I wrote, I sort of spent a day with each of them getting their notes. And not only because they have the credibility of having actually done it, if I have a professional problem, not a creative problem, but a professional problem where I need the advice of somebody who isn't getting 10 or 5% of what I'm making, they're usually the guys I ask what to do, and they usually say, give the money back.
More for them.
Yeah.